Although I'm a topographer, but I'm also a full-time teacher and shifted to teaching and writing and yeah, I don't know, really lots of at least community participation in the last years, which I don't know, it just happened. So anyone who wants me to design some book interiors, please email me also. I would be happy to do that. But you wished that I could talk about alphabetus. There's no consensus on how you even pronounce this. I have to say this before. I still say alphabetus, which is super German, of course. The Americans say alphabets. And the funny thing is that pretty much on the same day, the Google company Alphabets also launched when we published the blog. And so we get a lot of tweets for actually Google company. But so alphabetus, for better understanding what I'm going to say, is a group I accidentally founded in like 3 years ago now. And I'm trying to explain a little bit why this happened, and maybe you see that it was pretty incidental, but it didn't come from nowhere. But oh yeah, first I want to say that I don't really like to talk about alphabetus because I rather have that women are invited to talk about whatever fantastic things they do, content or design or something, and not always have these panels about women's problems. It's a little weird. And I also don't really like to talk about alphabetus because it's not my group, or I'm not the head of the thing. I just started it, and then it's like it's going its own way. So I might represent it today, but there are also different people in the audience that represent it just as well, and we'll hear from them later on maybe. But yeah, so it wasn't really intentional, but in 2015, it felt like it sort of like the time was ripe for it, or there were too many things happening at the same time that we could not ignore it anymore. And the first thing that was, I don't know, online, a discussion in the spring of 2015 was this campaign about for a typeface that was really in the eye of some of the women pretty sexist, because it was like using these almost nude photography and also really suggestive language. And we were like, why do you even have to advertise a typeface like this? Because there's really no need. And that is not even coming from a woman, but the first people who called this out was like, yeah, this is weird and this is not even funny anymore. Although the person who actually put it out never really got why we are criticizing this. So he thought like, oh, this is just parody, it's snarky. But we were like, yeah, it's not parody enough. It's just not so funny anymore. And there was a huge Twitter debate, and we collected this in this. You have these online tools how you can collect the tweets and stuff like this. And Amy Papelias is her name, who now became a friend, but I didn't know at the time, also wrote an article about like what is happening here, because he accused us for not getting the humor, but we thought it's not funny. So she put out this article on Typographica, citing some of the copy from the type advertisements, like flowing curves of a woman's body packed with alternates that turn you on. So we are like, I don't know, we were not so into that. And then pretty much at the same time, there were these campaigns starting up by Font Shop promoting women for Women's Day. But I think like we should write about the work of women every day. It doesn't have to be like an occasion like this. And it's also that lots of people don't think this is has to be done at all. So it's not that this is without criticism. So if you check the comments under these kind of posts, it's like, yeah, I don't know, this is necessary. According to the National Endowment of the Arts, females in design make up more than 50% of the demographics. And that is true. It is actually almost more than 50%, but because my students are probably like 70 or 80% female. But where are these people after school? Or where do they work, where they're not really visible? So I think, well, you see that this is a topic that there's no consensus on. Next thing that happened a few weeks later was the first conferences of the season publishing their schedule, pretty male heavy. So we had a huge Twitter debate about why are there no women speaking at these conferences? And that really got like, but at this point, after the third Twitter debate within months, we really also started to like communicate, like a group of international people in typography or women in typography started to communicate more, and especially Diana Weissman started to email lots of us and interview us. So what is the actual objective situation of the thing? And then there's this whole other world of type drawers, which is a discussion forum, which has also always been very male heavy and sometimes a little rude in the tone. And I was one of the only female participants since it was founded. I forgot what it was, I think 2013 or something. And even some people tried to bring up this topic, but it was immediately shut down. No, we don't have to talk about this. This person, this is why is his name, I think. He was banned from the forum immediately. And at some point, I really totally gave up on type drawers, and I never went there anymore, and I found it horrible. And I joked with a friend of mine, Jackson Cavanaugh, one night in August that, yeah, well, I'll give up on it, and I'll never go there anymore. Or maybe I take over type drawers, and within half an hour, I posted comments on all of the posts on the homepage, just like as a joke, because sometimes I found that also men sometimes comment on a post where they're not even experts in the field or something, and I just did the same. On every post that was on the homepage, I wrote a comment, and then soon like it was all like my name there. But I saw like, oh, this is also fun, I thought, and then I started to email all kinds of people like, come over to type drawers, we're taking over type drawers, and let's post. Like I said something like, at least if all of us would post only one new thread this week, it would be super fun, we thought. And well, they were totally into it, and we had a huge discussion, like email discussion with 68 emails. And at that point, we thought like, okay, this is not really working as email anymore, so we need to move to a different place to discuss things. But I mean, certainly something like 30 people signed up for type drawers that night or the day after, and like 30 women. And then also this what is this moderator or the person who ran the platform, Stephen Coles at the time, he noticed and was like, oh, I was surprised that so many women are signing up, and yeah, I'm welcoming this. And the problem is that he made this fact that all these women signed up a discussion about diversity on type drawers, which completely went into the wrong direction. And it is still like with 7 pages, and I don't know, probably it's something like 200 posts. It is the longest thread on type drawers, and it's really horrible. So if you want to have a really horrible day, read this thread, because you see the worst of your colleagues, which you would have probably not expected. But in 2015, it's really, like, it started right here. Well, you can say, like, you can mark a comment as inappropriate, and then it gets hidden. So this is like several posts were hidden from public view because they were inappropriate. And it's like, it was really, well, not nice. And there was even like a diversification post-mortem, because they had to close the flat at that point because it was so, well, it got out of hand. And then it's like 3 months later, they wanted to talk, why did this get out of hand? But it just made everything worse, sort of. Also, the women also left the platform again, because it was like, yeah, there's no hope in this, and it's not a good place to discuss things. So we thought like we just need our own place where we discuss things or talk about things or post our work. And that's what we did like 2 weeks later on August 27 in 2015, our humble blog. This was how it looked like, our first post. Announcing that this is going to be a blog. It's not really yet, but we thought that the women who didn't want to post on type drawers anymore want to post their text research work or something on their own website. This is how it looked like 2 years later. It really grew into a full blog we have different categories or sections where we report about new things or comment on weird things or post our research and work or showcase new typefaces and things like this. So yeah, this is like news, whatever's happening, who died, what conferences we went to, Commentary can be, it's also that there's no editorial board, so everyone who wants to post something can post something. I'm not reading this. I mean, if you ask me, I read it, of course, and like the non-native speakers usually ask native speakers if they can correct their language or something like this, but other than that, it's no censored or anything. You can post about new works. There's like also a showcase section, research, super weird, special interest stuff like bouguinese, or I wrote about typecasting a couple of times. And then we had a couple of successful series, interview series, which really in a different method and at length talk with different designers or love letters. And one of the most popular series was our favorite typefaces of 1915. This was sort of like a homage and to the favorite typefaces that always come out on Typographica and which are always late. I think this year it will come out in September or something. So we thought like, oh, when is it coming out? Okay, we should make our own series, but it's a one-off, and we discussed these old typefaces as if they were just released. This is how the blog looks right now. Last week we changed the typefaces to the headline typefaces by Alexandra Samulenkova. It's called Pilot and came out at Bold Monday, and the body copy is set in Dover serif text from Robin Mintjes at the Tiny Type Co. And right now we're a group of 211 members from all over the world. So on the About page you can read a little bit of this, and if you click on it you also see all of the members. This is all of us right now. It got so large that you almost don't see any names on it anymore, but I'll also made this map at a board moment where I located everyone, but this is also not up to date yet. So we have probably like 5, 6, 7 members from Mexico by now. Also, I think someone from Chile, but we definitely need more people from Africa. So if anyone knows an African person in type, so it can be a type designer, typographer, lettering artist, calligrapher. Also, like this area here needs some help. All of Russia. I think we only have 2 Russian women in Moscow. So, but what do we do there? It's super unorganized. We call it a loose network. There's no hierarchy really. There's a couple of people who get asked everything, but otherwise it's 211 members, as I said, as of now. And the only mission statement that we have is that we are supporting and promoting the work of all the women in the field of type, lettering, calligraphy, typography, research, and these things. That can take any form, of course. That's not really defined, but it's, of course, showing the work, talking about the work, research, design, whatever they do, community activities like engaging people or meeting, or like I'm talking about the mentorship program later on, or just show presence. I think it really just by having this group now and this name really changed a lot, because it's sort of, we watch the industry a little bit and comment when everything, like something weird is happening. They already fear that we will send a weird tweet or something like this. We comment, of course, on certain topics. We have a calendar of typographic events, conferences, talks all over the world where you can check where you can maybe meet some of us or other people. And then also, for instance, at the Typographics conference, we always have sort of a variety hour where we do, it's live streamed as a podcast, and we do some short activities, interviews, presentation things. Yeah, the podcast. Sometimes we give away tickets or that people offer us or something like this. But it's also, like, of course, the professional idea is to advise people on how to deal, I don't know, with difficult situations. You have someone who supports you and answers the questions. Tips how to present at a conference, how to apply for a conference, and then maybe we have a group that watches, like together you can present your conference talk online, and then we give comments like what you maybe could change, so to get people get more comfortable in speaking at conferences, writing, of course, like editing. And the mentorship program is something that we set up pretty early on, like I think also within the first year, that we wanted to connect experts or just people who are longer in the field with newcomers who try to get into the field or break into the field, especially if they're not part of a formal education program and maybe don't know many people in an area where there's not so much structure. And that is also open to everyone, so mentors and mentees can be of any sexual orientation or whatever. And so if any of you want to volunteer as a mentor or as a sign up for a mentee, there's information on our website, and you have to fill in certain forms, what your area of expertise is, and then we try to match you with someone. And we have a little bit of a backlog there, so sometimes it takes like 4 weeks of you until you hear back from us, but eventually we will get there. So this is quite popular. How do we even organize us, like talking to each other, is that after you saw that my email chain didn't really work anymore, we moved to a chat platform where we talk remotely, so almost no one is in the same place, or at least I'm not in the same place with other people. London, New York, and maybe Paris has a few more people there that they can also meet in person. Email, chat, or something like Google Docs. We have a huge Google spreadsheets where we organize all kinds of activities in. And then at events like here or other conferences, now you know so many new people, and you are never alone at a conference and have to stand there like not knowing anyone. So because you, like, just from the name, you know so many more people and can meet at the events and have a beer or something. What did we learn in these years? I'm probably not going to disclose all the secrets, but the biggest two things is probably that it's really hard when everyone is in a different place, in a different time zone. It makes it, of course, also exciting, but it's hard to coordinate things and stuff. And the larger the group doesn't mean that there are proportionally more people who are getting active, but a larger group is actually also facilitating, always thinking, oh, the other people will probably take care of this. So we saw probably in the beginning it was very dynamic, and with 50, 60, 80 people, it worked really well. And then the larger the group went, it was not growing these same maybe 30 people who are super active. And now we actually feel like there's a decrease in activity or alertness, because even for me, it's like, oh, I don't have to answer this. It's probably someone else can do this. But it's, yeah, everyone thinks this. So this is a little bit of a, well, we're dealing with this. But also the larger the group means, of course, that you have so many different people with so many different backgrounds and knowledge and interests that it really enriches, of course, everything also. And the internationality makes it really easy to help everyone with the most obscure question and script or background or contact requests and stuff. Of course, also a larger group means a little bit more power or influence, at least on paper. And what I really find super useful is that I get asked a lot about like who should we invite to a conference, and it's now so easy for me that I know 211 more people with all kinds of different specialities that I can, of course, recommend from a much larger pool of people in also all kinds of different places. So as you saw, we know someone in all areas of the world probably. Of course, as I hinted, the larger the group, the less intimate the discussion or activities might be. Sometimes there were local groups that wanted to speak in their own language also, because it's really hard for non-native speakers, of course, to keep up with the same kind of discussion and writing as the English speakers are. And so the French sometimes just have discussions among themselves in French, and we're like, oh, let's... But that is always a reminder that we take this whole English thing for granted. Like me also, I hope that you all speak English well enough to even understand me. But I also know how hard it is to write not in your native language, to write a real professional blog post that is not too embarrassing. But it's still just as fantastic that we are talking to these people at all. I mean, I didn't know any typographer in Mexico before this, or in, I don't know, Australia or things like this, on Asia. And this really is the biggest Fund in German, what do you say, like the biggest positive impact that it had on me, that it is so internationally opened all the doors to all kinds of people. Yeah, I already talked about why we're doing this, and you think that probably all the sexist campaigns were solved, but I mean, just every once in a while there's some weird stuff on Twitter, or really respected colleagues in the type industry who still think that they have to mansplain someone else in a weird tweet or something like this, and that it's now you're not alone anymore with this situation, and you can talk to other people and they help you and have your back. But just to explain a little bit more about this, this is from an interview request I recently got. Like, what are the positive impacts, or am I seeing any positive impacts of Alphabetis, and is there still a struggle? Like, no, it was like, it becomes increasingly apparent that sadly some men struggle with the idea of women gathering together and being empowered. Have Alphabetis encountered any resistance from this unsavory school of thought? How have you navigated this? Okay, I'll try to answer this. Positive impacts, as I said, it's, I think it in a very short period of time, it really had the biggest impact on this, connecting all the different people that were already there. It's not that there are no women in type, but it's just that they were not always the loudest and biggest faces in the community. And now that we connected everyone, it got a little bigger, and it's now that we are also talking with the voice of other people or for other people. So whenever someone feels treated unfairly, we got their backs and try to back them up. And just by being present, there's much more awareness of this whole, I don't know, I don't want to say problem or issue, or just like the fact that there are so many female designers out there. I think we can make this a little bit more visible. Yeah, general visibility. And against the misconception that there are no women in type, tech, programming, or whatever it is, because they're just not the ones that are shouting all the time. As I said, we are helping each other with professional advice, like how do you even write an invoice, how do you even write a quote for something like this, or if they have like difficult clients, how you deal and navigate this situation or something. The mentorship program got really picked up really well, as I said, and I or many more people have more people to suggest for conferences. Yes, we totally encountered resistance, you wouldn't think, but it's in the beginning it was especially like, why is this even needed? I mean, probably everyone has their own answers for that. We get complaints that, of course, Alphabetis is watching all the ratio of the speakers at every conference, and it's true, it's sometimes really annoying, even when I'm watched at conferences that I organize, or the Fontstand conference or something like this. But at least there's, it's even like the people who organize an event already say, yeah, but I know that it is not super diverse, so we don't even have to say anything anymore. So it's like they're policing themselves, more or less. And I totally also had this, that people are not really talking to me anymore because they didn't like what we were doing there, or it's like relationships died down, or work relationships and something like this. And that is, of course, something that you have to face. If you are vocal and complain about things, then there are always people who are not of the same opinion, and there are some repercussions, but I think they are still worth it. Yeah, like something like this. Whenever someone puts out a program or something, like Pablo thinks that we are really evil. That is something that I struggled with myself, because many people don't see the issues or don't have any issues themselves, so it's hard for them to understand what we are even talking about. And because they never experienced this themselves. And this is, me is actually the best perfect example, because I had the same problem in the beginning when we had this discussion about the speakers. I was actually on the other side, like, yeah, but it's also on the women that they have to like put in the proposals and stuff. It's not just the organizers. I mean, the women also have to get more access and active. And I don't like that it's always the organizers who get blamed. And what was this? Yeah, like stereotypes that I put out, like, yeah, women always like apply less readily, and that's maybe true, but there are also so many other factors that are playing in there. So I totally wanted to see the problem myself, because I never really had any big issues in my life with, I don't know, that I felt like I was not respected or I didn't get a job or something. And then you really can totally see it, the transition on my own blog. Like the first blog post that I put out about equality in our industry is like, I don't want anyone to open the doors for me. I just, no, yeah, I want them to open the doors, and I get everything myself. I can do that, and blah, 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 pretty rough talk. Then it's like this whole thing, yeah, they can also propose the talks themselves. It's not that they have to wait for the invitation. But then I think by now I already noticed that it's probably just like certain people who never really had the problem. So the day after I reflected, maybe it's me that is not having a problem and not general. And then I was thinking of, because I'm not really fearful that anything that I was not able to do has anything with my gender, because maybe also because I went to a girls' school, so it was always, if you had a problem, it was about something else, or because you're an asshole, or you're not good enough, but it's not because you're a girl. There was always like, there was never the idea that I cannot do anything. I can major in chemistry, and I can do sports, and I do cooking. It never occurred to me that there are things that I'm not allowed to do. So then you see like, okay, I'm getting at these topics and stereotypes, and try to talk about this myth of women are afraid to talk in public because it's not true, but sometimes, yeah, we're just not so, I don't know, overly promoting ourselves as some other people are doing. And is it even a thing that we have to extra promote women or support women? Isn't it enough if everyone just gets the same treatment? The problem is like when right now the balance is not there, so there's an imbalance, and if you put 50-50 on each side, it stays an imbalance. So for a while we maybe have to support and extra invite some women until this is balanced out a little bit, and then everyone can be treated equally for whatever you're proposing. But I think otherwise you could never really get rid of this imbalance that is already there. How do we navigate the resistance? Well, at least for me, it's not by shutting up or stopping this. Sorry, some people would probably like that, but I'm not sure if we should keep going in a softer tone or a stronger tone, so I haven't figured that out myself. But we're also trying to talk in different venues than just Twitter, which is always a little very absolute and prone to misunderstandings, of course. Because I know how it feels when you're talking to someone who doesn't experience the problem, we try to explain it in a way that they can maybe relate to it. And then, of course, the concrete advice to the people who are maybe not as fortunate as I have been. Because we can all do something. So for the women here, I'm very happy that lots of women are here. Please try to also use all the public channels like social media and Twitter and all the weird type forums where all the guys are only talking. I think if we find this ridiculous and leave them the field, then they think that we are not there, but we're maybe too busy to participate in Twitter all the time. But I think it's important that we are also present on all kinds of platforms to show the face a little bit. Don't fear snarky replies. At least I'm pretty good at this, and I'm also covering your back in whenever Erich Spiekermann is pissing on you. Don't apologize too much. And also don't be afraid to speak in not your native language, because it's super hard to find the confidence to even give a talk in English. I remember my first talk, I wanted to die. It was the worst thing ever. But whenever you talk to a native English speaker, they always like this, or at least they tell me that funny English is fun. I'm never sure if I should believe them, but there's no way you can work against this without trying it more. Have more confidence in the work that you do, because lots of people that I talk to and I say, yeah, propose a talk. No, it's just, what should I talk about? It's not interesting enough what I'm doing, or it's not, no, what do I even have to show? None of the guys ever question this. They always think that they have the best ideas and the best things to show. So I tell the women that they should have the confidence to also propose something. And there's even a big market in that people are suggesting themselves to conferences. You wouldn't believe this, even the ones that are invited. Lots of guys email the organizers like, hey, I have this super cool topic that I could talk about, so please just do this as well. It's like the black market of conferences talk, so we have to play the games as well. So for everyone else, or everyone, is if someone is reporting about weird imbalances or issues, we have to believe them, because even if we have never experienced this problem, they're probably not making it up, or at least not all of it. So accept their points of views, even if it's not your own, and try to help them in a situation, or pay attention to these situations where there's imbalance or injustice and something, and try to help out there. And I think it's also really important to for everyone who has a design studio, for instance, to offer women a work environment they really want to work in, or just jobs that are flexible enough also after they maybe got a kid, or I don't know, just not all around late night working until 10 p.m., always eating delivered pizza and always going for the beers. I'm really also into the beers, but not everyone is into the beers. So maybe you can find some different work activity that is not just involving sports and beers and something like this. And if you see someone whose work you really like, you can just tell them, and then that is also building their confidence, which they maybe not have because they don't have the experience. So whenever you see something that you appreciate, it also fosters the confidence if you tell them and maybe point them to opportunities for talks or an exhibition or a job opportunity you find, and then, yeah, offer your genuine support, but try to be careful to not come across so like, I don't know, schooling someone or belittling someone or patronizing, because especially on Twitter, that is something that can come across really weird if someone is replying all the time and like always have the good tips. So you think like, okay, yeah, it's like mansplaining is a weird word, but sometimes we have the tendency and actually just want to help, but it can come across in different ways. That's also something that goes for me. If I'm invited to a conference, I now ask who else is invited. So am I the only woman? That it's of course shitty to decline, because then they have no women. I had that so many times you wouldn't believe it. But I think it's men, some men, I think at the London school, your colleague started this 30% pledge, I think of Catherine, that he's just not going to speak at conferences anymore that have worse diversity than 30% women. And I think that is, I mean, if the men decline, then it's maybe the point where some organizers really get it. And that's not just the gender that is overrepresented, it's also sometimes the topics that are overrepresented. So if you are one of these people that are speaking at conferences all the time, like for instance me, I rather suggest other people now, but that also goes for experts on Twiggins and legibility, please. Like all the conference circuit, middle-aged people who talk a lot, like me. I'm not of perfect optical vision anymore, but they are also like the viewpoint of the young designer who can read everything at any distance. It's also probably overrepresented. And people who want to propose a new type classification should also not talk at conferences anymore. Okay, thank you. That was all I had for me, and there you can see more of that.